Alright, welcome back. So the video that you're seeing right now was actually not supposed to be a part of this course, but what happened was I'm actually shooting this or recording this video right now after I have completed shooting the whole course or recording the whole course. And what I realized was when I went through the entire course, when I was reviewing the course, I realized that the first step we did, the color correction that we just saw before, might have been slightly technical in nature for some people. So I do want to show you an easier way to color correct your photos also, so that if you found the first step difficult, you can probably follow this approach, which is going to be way easier and much more straightforward. All right, so that's what my feelings were, because I always, whenever I make my courses, I really want to accommodate people of different skill levels. So if you were a complete beginner, probably you might have found the last video slightly tough. So this is going to be much easier. By the way, since I'm making this after I've recorded the whole course, let me tell you now for sure that you are in for a treat, because I'm very happy with the course and you really have a lot to learn in this course. So anyway, let's get started with this video. So this was where we started with, without any color correction, without anything. And the tool that I'm going to show you, the easier way to do color correction, is to use the selective layer adjustment function, which you can access from here. Okay, so if you open this up, it's going to show you different colors here. Okay, when it comes to the skin color correction, mainly we'll be working with reds, because that's what Photoshop recognizes usually in almost all cases as the skin color. Okay, not yellow, not green. Maybe sometimes you can try with yellow if red is not working. So you're going to be moving around these sliders here, and you'll come to know if Photoshop is what Photoshop is treating this color as, the color of the skin. Usually it's going to be red, and then it's pretty straightforward. What you can do is you can see that this has a lot of those bad looking orangish tones, just like we saw in the video before, and you can just move around these sliders. So it's only going to affect these colors that are present in the reds. Okay, so we're mainly going to be working on the face here, and you can see if I, for example, if I move the cyan slider on the left, you can see it actually adds to our problems. You can just do this by eye. We're trying to get rid of that orangish look. So you can see when I move this side and actually increase the cyan, in the reds, you can see that this is, when I decrease the cyan, it's kind of adding more of the reddishness, right? And you can see if I do this, this kind of starts to give us what we got before. But you can see this is much easier, and probably a lot of beginners will like this, because you can just experiment by moving some sliders. If it works, well and good for you. And what you can do is, let's just try to move around the other sliders also. So you can see like this is good. Obviously, if you add magenta, it's not really going to work. If you decrease magenta, maybe in this case, it can help us, because the problems were a bit reddish in nature. You can see you can add a bit of yellow or blacks. Okay, black is just going to kind of make it more contrasty, the reddish part. Okay, so what helps in this case is, what you can do is that you can use what we call as a reference image. So for example, like I know that this person has a white skin, right? So you can probably pick out an image from Google or from your own work where you shot a similar person who has a similar skin tone, and in that picture the colors are correct. So let me show you. Like for example, I found this image, and for me this was pretty close to this kind of skin tone that this girl has. So what you can do is you can just open up that image and just drag it onto this image like this. So it'll just open up like an image. If the size is not to your liking, you can always press Control and T. That's going to be for transform, or Command and T if you're using a Mac, and then you can just make it bigger or smaller. But usually this is going to be slightly small, just as a reference. On the left you can put it here. Okay, and since this layer, you can see this is the new layer, which is layer 1, the reference image. This is on top, right? So if I move around the selective color by going back, whatever I do, it's only going to impact the layer beneath it, which is the layer the image that we are working on. Okay, not this. So this will remain constant. And what you can do is, since they both have similar color tones, you can probably use this image just to get an idea of what is correct. For example, let's say if I were to do something like this, you can see this has no connection to the reference. It's looking totally off, right? Because this looks pretty good in terms of color correction, right? right? There's no color problem here. Her color tones are looking good. But in this case, it's not right now. So if I keep an eye with this, you can see it just helps me much better. For example, right now, if I do this, if I just increase the cyan in the reds, you can see that it kind of starts getting close to this, right? We can similarly work with other sliders. You can see if I add too much magenta, kind of moving again. Of course, it's, you know, this is also being shot in different light. This is also shot in different light. That also plays a factor. There's no doubt about it. But that's why the best way to always do it is when you're shooting and you're using a gray card. That's the best way to do it, right? But here also we can kind of get close to what we want. So you can see this is looking off, right? But if I decrease, if I do too much, it's also off. But you can see something like this, kind of getting close to it. Another way you can get a reference image is, especially if you have the image of the same person that you're shooting, but in a color corrected environment. You can use that as a reference image also, though that is always not possible, right? So sometimes you can just find someone else who has a similar skin tone, okay? Otherwise, if you trust your eye, you can do this without the reference image also. It's just an easier way just by moving these sliders, right? So I just feel there's slightly too much of yellows here. So because I'm comparing it with this, and I can just decrease the yellows. Just a tiny bit, maybe just this much. You see now this looks pretty close, right? Maybe just decrease a bit of blacks just to reduce the contrast a bit in the reds. And I think this is pretty close. And you can see that we have been able to color correct this photo now. Once you're done with this, you can get rid of this reference layer, or you can even hide it so that you can later on access it. And now if I just hide this selective color adjustment, you can see that we have gone from this to this. Something very similar to what we did with the last video, but this is a much easier way, especially if you're a beginner. So I just thought I'll add this video, and from the next video onwards, trust me, you are in for a ride. It's going to be a lot of fun because we'll actually be starting with the retouching of this portrait, and there's a lot to go. So I'll see you in those videos. Bye for now.